overnight train in Mississippi with his wife, trying to make peace. The murder of his cousin by a clan of racists.
Will come out of the injured.
Nearly 70 years ago to this day. Do you forgive Mississippi? Do you forgive America for what happened? Do you forgive those people? If you don't forgive, God ain't forgiving you. Send this to God. And you got to believe that. Is it hard for you to go back to Mississippi ever? For a long time, I wouldn't go for over 10 years. This 86-year-old preacher at the sunset of his life is the only living witness of the kidnapping of Emmett Till in 1955. They were barely teenagers when he and his cousin took a train like this one from their home in Chicago, spent the summer with family in Mississippi, but only one of them was returned alive. God big and fan this time down south. When you're young, just want to get there and get it going, sing, get good. Both of you were excited when there, and it was an adventure for us, you know. But see, I'm from the south. I'm cute there, and I'm always in the south. He didn't know it. I knew where I was going, probably going behind. He says they warned his cousin things were different behind that iron curtain in America. That black children who were out after dark could pay with their lives, and that black boys should never even dare speak to white women. You know, you can be killed for reckless eyeball. For reckless eyeball. Reckless eyeball. You know who was white in 1955? I believe it. Yeah, I believe it. When we arrived in the Mississippi Delta in the morning rain, he took us to what's left of the grocery store. Where would we entrance? The new red in front of it, overgrown with weeds, and much smaller than the scene he remembers as a child. This is where the white woman who worked here claimed that his 14-year-old cousin had grabbed her, put his hands around her waist, and then told her he had slept with white women before. It was all over the daily papers with quotes from a young Wheeler Parker calling 21-year-old Carolyn Bryant a pretty lady, interviews he says he never gave. Bryant and her husband Roy owned the store. In 2007, she told a book writer that she lied, and then she died in 2023, never apologizing to the black families. What should I not forget to tell America about what happened? It's history. Not here to serve around the mouth here, really. Talk about history. Let the world see. Let the world know how far we've come. America is great. We made a lot of progress. We should do a better job and be more open about it. Yeah, you can't deny that, you know. That's the truth. The people make it free. Reverend Parker, who was there, says the truth is that Emmett Till only whistled at the woman. He says the bigger mistake was that he and his cousin and a few other black boys were there without an adult. They knew in seconds their lives were on the line and ran from the store. What happened next would leave a bloody stain on the fabric of American history. 2:31, I hear these people talking. So you got two boys from Chicago. One come to the one to be the talking. I said, God, I said, I'm getting ready to die. They said they kill us. But when he did that with the spirit, when he was so delivered, he violated a big boy. Couldn't shot on the spot. And I said, God, I'm going to die. So 2:30 in the morning, someone comes to the door? Yeah, they knocked on the door, and you couldn't see your face, hands from the face. Was it screaming? No, not screaming, this belligerent death talk, what we call death talk. It's like he's not respecting them. So that's the last time we saw him. That was the last time you saw him alive. Before the night was over, Carolyn Bryant's husband and half-brother would drag Emmett Till to a barn and then mutilate the child in unspeakable ways.
before shooting him in the head and then dumping his body in the Tallahatchie River. His mother couldn't even recognize her child and demanded an open casket at his funeral, determined to shock the nation and change the law, which she did.
And as much as my son had to die, I don't want his death to be a vain thing. If it can further the cause of freedom, then I will say that he died a hero.
This is the bond. So many people we talk with around here say that for many years, they couldn't speak to what happened inside of here, and for different reasons. For some, it was about not giving word to the horror that happened here, and for others, it was about living in denial.
Tonight, we gather here in Greenwood, Mississippi, humbled by the weight of history and lifted by the power of remembrance.
On this 70th anniversary of Emmett Till's murder, people from around the world are meeting Reverend Parker in Mississippi. Bound to never forget. This couple drove from Arkansas to see the barn for themselves.
I want it to be taught. I want history to be taught. We have ugly parts of history, but it needs to be taught.
The owners of the barn are now selling it to a history museum with the help of a major donation from television producer Shonda Rhimes. She explained to our Robin Roberts why this was a must-do.
I don't think I'd ever known where it happened, where a child had been tortured and killed. I couldn't let it go.
They're also trying to preserve the land where the boys slept that night and the old grocery store where the injustice began. And while we were there, they put the gun those men used on display at a local museum. America's laws never held a single person responsible, and there are people here who still fight with the truth. They've had to replace this signpost, for example, spelling out what happened here more than once, because some people keep filling it with bullet holes. It's all a reminder that whatever peace we here in America enjoy today doesn't come easy. And the good Reverend insists that forgiveness has to be part of this story.
People who don't forgive, they suffer. They suffer tremendously.
But this is about people who are lynching people, that a lot of Black folks aren't in the reconciliation mood and want a different attitude for different times.
Right. From our perspective, everybody got to come temple God. Get people to see the light. That's my job. You know, Martin King took that attitude, Jesus took that attitude. And that's what we have to do, try to change individuals.
Our thanks to Steve Sansoni.
Thank you all for taking a few moments to.
Hello, Celia.
Okay, thank you all for taking a few moments of hearing the words of one Reverend William Parker. Side note, Reverend Parker, along with Cindy and Wright up to his passing, were these consults of the early work, and even to some degree, well, not so much Cindy and Wright because he's since passed away. But when it comes to the work of the Interpretive Center, we believe it was the early commission as well as the current center values very greatly the thoughts and concerns of Till family, and more specifically that of Reverend William Parker. You'll hear more about that from our colleagues, one of whom being none other than Miss Jessie Jane. And so with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and officially introduce our panel. I'm gonna read their biographies, and then from there, we'll continue. So the first biographical sketch that we can talk about is none other than Mr. Hermon Johnson Sr. Birthday is that of May 5th, 1929, based off of Douglas. He is affectionately known as the man behind the scenes for his steadfast and often quiet leadership in the historic African-American town of Mound, Bayou, Mississippi. He's a retired leader. Mr. Johnson is recognized as a living historian and expert on the town's legacy of self-determination, economic independence, and civil rights activism. After graduating from Southern University and A&M College and serving in the U.S. military, Mr. Johnson returned to Mississippi, where he began his professional journey under the leadership of none other than Dr. T.R.M. Howard. He was hired as a field officer for the Magnolia Mutual Life Insurance Company in Mount Bayou, stepping into the role previously held by none other than Mr. Medgar Evers, who had relocated to Jackson. Johnson's work placed him at the heart of the community's social and economic empowerment efforts. And so during the height of the civil rights movement, Mr. Johnson formed relationships with key national leaders such as Coretta Scott King, John Lewis, and Julian Bond. He had the rare opportunity to meet privately with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Mount Bayou. During the trial following the murder of Emmett Till, Mr. Johnson served as one of the drivers who transported Dr. T.R.M. Howard, gaining firsthand knowledge of one of the movement's most pivotal moments. And so I'm just going to condense a little bit of this because we definitely want to hear more from him. So in the aftermath of a devastating tornado in Inverness, Mississippi in 1972, Mr. Johnson responded by initiating the founding of the Delta Housing and Development Corporation, which was a nonprofit organization dedicated to building homes and offering housing assistance across the Delta. Mr. Johnson was previously married to the late Alfreda Johnson and is now married to Maddie Johnson. He is the proud father of 4 children and the patriarch of a growing legacy of grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I give to you the incomparable Mr. Hermon Johnson. And so next, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Miss Venita Halbert. Originally from Chicago, Illinois, she has lived in Tallahatchie County for the past 2 decades. She graduated from the illustrious institution known as Mississippi Valley State University in 2018 with a bachelor's degree in business administration. Her highest hope is to bring jobs and opportunities to Tallahatchie County for all people. She is eager to make a positive difference in the community. Ms. Halbert serves as the Emmett Till Interpretive Center's, I added words that went there, as the Interpretive Center's Community Engagement Coordinator. Y'all give it up for Ms. Halbert. And then we have Ms. Jessie Jaynes-Diming. She is a passionate, and let me say it again, she is a passionate community activist, wanting to see change for the future. Born in Chicago, she lived there for 51 years before becoming a transplant to Tallahatchie County. Now, this is what was read here, okay? All right. She was a founding member of the Emmett Till Memorial Commission, preserving the story of Emmett Till, and wants that story to be the cause for for more healing and learning. Mrs. Diming now works as the Interpretive Center's Special Projects Coordinator. Mrs. Diming. And last, but I guess not least, is yours truly. So I, Benjamin Saulsberry, am a native of the West Tallahatchie. I read my own Bible. Y'all, so I am a native of Tallahatchie County, Mississippi, born and raised. And I have been surrounded by and exposed to community activism really all of my life by way of my mother, probably made me follow because she couldn't hire a babysitter. Having said that, I have had the great pleasure and honor. I'm a former educator, graduated from the illustrious institution known as Mississippi Valley State University as well in 2008 with a music performance degree, and I have some graduate studies from the University of Mississippi. But I've been directly engaged with this work, really, even prior to officially volunteering in 2016 with the Interpretive Center. I kind of had my very first start with the Emmett Till Historic Interpretive Center of Glendora, Mississippi. I want to say back in to show you how old I am, back in like 2013, maybe, something. So with that being said, I've had the great privilege and honor of speaking to literal thousands of folks over the last 10 years as pertains to race, racism, what racial reconciliation could like, what our community and organization has tried to foster when we talk about those things. And a host of other things in places like Harvard Law, the University of Detroit and Mercy, and have also hosted a number of trainings in the vein of the work we do as pertains to preserving this legacy and sharing this narrative to others. So that's me in a nutshell, and that's what was written on this phone / website. So having said that, before we go further, I want to encourage you to think about the first time you heard the name Emmett Till, first time you were introduced to Emmett Till. Just think about, where were you, right? How old were you? What was going on in your life at that time? And we may actually be able to, we will set aside some time for us to share that as well. We're going to start with the panel, and we're going to actually give Mr. Johnson the floor from it. We're going to segue really quickly to hear just a brief first encounter with Emmett Till from members of so Ms. Halbert, if you don't mind, you want to start us off?
All right, check 1, 2. All right, y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So as my bio said, I'm originally from Chicago. So growing up, we did not talk about the Emmett Till narrative in Chicago. It was so many other things going on, we couldn't get to that. But once we made it, when I say we, this is my great aunt, that's my uncle. So when the family came from Chicago back to Mississippi, we were in school on a summer day after testing, and they said, we're gonna watch a movie. So we got all excited. And they put on the Eyes on the Prize documentary. And in the midst of listening to it, we hear Tallahatchie County, Sumner, Mississippi, LaFleur County, places that's in our backyard. What you talking about? That, man. And it made us inquire more. And that's when I was in the 4th grade. And during that time, our teachers were not equipped to teach us about the mill. So the questions that we had, they went unanswered. And just so happened, I was blessed to have an auntie, like she said, she was voluntold to be a part of this narrative. And I was voluntold behind her. So in times where I didn't want to go, she drug me along. And this is when we were talking about a lot of these narratives that was a part of the Civil Rights Act, the movement, everything. The first time I was introduced to the 3 civil rights workers in Philadelphia was through this narrative. The first time I was introduced to Megan Evers was through this narrative. A lot of names that I'm learning now, and I'm 31 years old, is through this narrative. It was not in school. It was not at home. It was now. Now that it's a discussion, now I'm learning. And that's scary to me, especially being that I have 2 little girls that's in the same community that I grew up in. And it's like, not to toot our own horn, but the work that we're doing is changing that narrative. We're creating curriculums, Ben is doing training, our youth engagement coordinators empowering our youth to know how to tell their own stories of their own community. So we're changing that slightly, but that's how I was introduced. I grew up celebrating, commemorating by the Jet and Ebony magazine in Chicago, Illinois. Every year, we always got that update. I was only 3 years old when Emmett passed away. But I think I was bitten by the history bug that funneled me into this work by being a board member of a clinic, and then meeting my husband in Chicago and traveling with him to Mississippi, and becoming enamored with his childhood friend that he grew up with, Jerome G. Little, which at that particular time was running for the position of supervisor. And he became the supervisor. He ran 3 times and became the supervisor over the courthouse. And when he became the supervisor, the courthouse was about to be condemned. He understood that he could not go to his constituents, to the community, and say, I need $2-3 million to keep this courthouse. We're 2 counties seat, but they didn't want to give up their courthouse. So he invested in going to the legislators and convening William Winter and Benny Thompson and Senator David Jordan. And in that meeting, Senator David Jordan, at the time of the trial, was a 19-year-old Valley State student. And he brought to the floor that you're asking me to earmark some money and you're sitting on the most historical landmark of the civil rights movement. And to shorten that part of it is, we're sitting here today because of that conversation, because of that recognition by Senator David Jordan being told to cover trial. And then 50 years later, because Jerome and my husband and the other members of the community of Tallahatchie County and the surrounding area, they weren't allowed to talk about it. So they didn't know the significance of the courthouse that they ran in and played with and while their parents took care of their business, and that this was the site of where Emmett Till's murderers were acquitted. So a fire was created in his belly. He wanted to apologize to Mamie. He didn't get to give her that apology, but he did give it to he did make it to give it to the Till family, and that relationship is still intact with the Till family, with the last living witness. And I heard about it as a child and never forgot about it, because I believe in walking your path. When you're walking your path, it has led me to be here today and to learn so much more and to do so much more. So I'm just gonna leave it there as when I heard about it.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Johnson, we want you to also share when you heard about the life of Emmett Till, but more specifically, we want you to share what life was like growing up in a Jim Crow Mississippi and how living in Mount Bayou was different, during this time. And so like you're going to share when you first learned about Emmett Till and how Mount Bayou is connected to Emmett Till, but also share a little bit about your life growing up in Jim Crow Mississippi and how living in Mount Bayou was different during this era.
Well, I think,
Sorry, now. It's on.
first of all,
Turn this way.
okay, yeah. First of all, growing up in Mississippi, I did.
Okay.
I grew up in Louisiana. And the idea of Emmett Till came later on after I found out about an all African American town where black people ran everything. I came to Mount Bayou because my aunt was living in Mount Bayou, and she had told us about Mount Bayou. So I came to Mount Bayou to pick up my wife and go to Chicago or New York, because that's where I planned to live. But when I got here, I met a man, but I already met him a couple years before I came here. But he said, I got a job for you, and I had just finished school at Southern University of Bayou. So when I came here and said, I got a job for you. So I didn't know what the job was, but he was getting ready to send Medgar Evers to the state for the NAACP field director. So that's how I got in here in the first place. Now, I don't know how much time I have.
A little bit more.
Okay, now, but the reason I wanted to tell you the story about how I got involved with the Emmett Till situation, because that didn't start off in my mind. I was working for TRM Howard, but I was worked as a secretary of all of his organizations, which he had many of. And I kind of worked as a secretary after the meeting of which the National Mishawaki Council. So I had an opportunity to drive him around to his meeting, which he wrote during his meeting while he was having a board meeting and never missed a beat. Now, I hope you understand what I'm saying. He was writing all the time he was conducting a meeting about the meeting that he was going to talk about when he went somewhere that he. And I'm sharing that with you because many people, many of you may or may not have ever heard of T.R.M. Howard. You might have heard of T.R.M. Howard as a person who had owned a big farm around here. He had a life insurance company. He had the nice, but he was worked as a medical director for the National Guard of State, that's where he started off. But then he started to develop around Memorial Hospital in Mount Bayou for himself as an office. So I'm sharing that with you because I'm thinking that you need to know something about T.R.M. Howard because he's an unsung, people don't know too much about him. But he started a whole lot of people because of the Emmett Till situation. And I want to get into that. For example, Rosa Parks. Many of you have heard of Rosa Parks. Have you?
Yeah.
Everybody heard of Rosa Parks.
Yes, sir.
Now, the reason she didn't get off the bus is in the book. That she heard T.R.M. Howard talking about Emmett Till. And she made a decision. She just wasn't going to get up. You hear about it, Rosa Parks, but you don't hear too much about T.R.M. Howard. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him because he did a whole lot of things, and I want to share them with you. But I want to share that, but I'm staying in the connection with Emmett Till because a whole lot of civil rights workers that we might have heard of came out to listening to Dr. T.R.M. Howard talk about Emmett Till. Now, I took Medgar Evers' place back when he was leaving, but I was always speaking of him, coming through or doing some other things. But now, the job I had was the same job that Medgar Evers had, but I didn't do everything that Medgar Evers was doing when he was working back then. And I want to share that with you too. Because Medgar Evers was he was over the insurance agents, all of them. They had to report to him. They had to report to me. But he was going in the field with those people, and he was talking to them, not about insurance, but he was talking to them about voting. What do you have to go through with? And what might happen if you try to. Okay. All right, now. I don't, like I said, I asked the question, how much time do I have? Because I can talk about being involved with Emmett Till, and I know that's what we were talking about, Emmett Till. And I don't want to hold y'all too long. And I don't know who else supposed to speak after me.
We got a program.
Oh, okay, all right.
I mean, I'll politely say thank you when.
Okay, all right, do that. Yeah, because I did a lot of things with T.R.M. Howard and his connection with Medgar Evers. I mean, not doing used to Emmett Till. But those are the things, and I used to drive him around because during that time, and just a little bit before the time, and I want to share this with you. The fact that T.R.M. Howard didn't continue to live in Mount Bayou is because the Ku Klux saying we're going to kill him. Now, I had been here with him about 3 months because I finished at Southern University and I got the job and I started working for them. So I'd only been here when Emmett Till was killed, but I didn't get a chance to go to the hearings, but I knew all about what was going on. And the only safe place around that we know of in the state of Mississippi from Emmett Till and for all the reporters from Chicago and New York and different places, the only safe place for them was with TRM house. And that was right, down the highway, few blocks from here, his house. He had guards around his house, and he protected his house, and he protected his car when he went to the hearing. That's something.
Perfect, Mr. Johnson. Thank you so much. We're gonna circle back to
Right, sure.
in a little bit, but we thank you for sharing it. So Ms. Mrs. Diming, let me put respect on your name. We're gonna ask that you speak about the origins of the Emmett Till Interpretive Center. And how it was created out of the desire to break the silence that overcame some. So the creation and legacy of the Emmett Till Memorial Commission, local social change, and how ETMC slash Emmett Till Interpretive Center set the tone doing meaningful work around racial reconciliation and respectful memorialization work. I'll tell you what, let's shorten it down. Let's say it this way. So Mrs. Diming, I want you to talk a little bit about what it was, the early days of the commission, because the commission predates the Interpretive Center. So if you don't mind, talk about the early days of the commission, their purpose, and how they morphed into the creation of the Emmett Till Interpretive Center.
The early days of the Emmett Till Commission was established by Jerome G. Little. And it came out of the fact that courthouse was about to be condemned, and that funding for the courthouse was centered around the restoration of the courthouse, on the significance of that the trial for Milo and Brian was held there. So that was the starting point, and the way to get funding to memorialize this courthouse. Because at that particular time, there was not a lot of conversation in the community. Most of the community did not know or understand the significance of the courthouse. That is the attention that was brought to Jerome, because they grew up playing in the courthouse and did not know the significance of it. But as an elected official and coming into that knowledge, it broke the silence in the community that was in every home in and around the community. We don't talk about that. And so that was a burden and a fire that was created in his belly that formed the Emmett Till Commission to serve two purposes. First, to shine light on the significance of it. Second, to restore it back to 1955. And then we'll go on to the second half of it, was to apologize to the Till family for the injustice that did not happen, for the justice that did not happen, and the injustice that did happen in the recognition of that they were acquitted of Emmett's death. But we have to understand that the commission was formed because of the silence and the lack of knowledge that not only Tallahatchie County, but most communities experience around the narrative of Emmett Till. So it was first about monetary to save the courthouse, but secondly, because of the significance of the heinous crime, and to break the silence, and because of the economic of it was that Black people couldn't say anything, because who they're gonna say anything to? Because at that particular time, it was all plantation life. Everybody worked and lived on plantations, and just about all the plantations were relatives. So who you gonna, if you work for John Bill, his grandson owned the next plantation, and your cousins lived and worked on that plantation. So what can you do? So the Emmett Till Commission was formed, and it was formed to be inclusive of all of the communities. So everybody had, each town in the Tallahatchie County could recommend two people to be a part of the Emmett Till Commission. I was volunteered to be the Tallahatchie County, Tutwiler community representative.
and I served in that position up until year before last. I served on the board. The commission was formed around restoring the courthouse, reconciliation, because at that particular time, now people are saying, yes, there was some injustice. So how do we reconcile this injustice? How do we reconcile this silence? And we have to do it together, because not a penny was coming out of mostly a Black home. All the money was coming out of the white home to save that courthouse and to restore it. So you have to work together. But the underlying current of it was the good work that could come out of recognizing what happened there, owning the story, telling the story, leaving a legacy, and taking that scab off of the silence, and recognizing Mamie and her struggle to make a difference. Because everybody galvanized and stood up behind her. That's why we have Mr. Howard being interested in her, because she stood up and said, I'm gonna open this casket up. I want the world to see what y'all did to mine. And for me, in the later years, I believe that she gave power to all the other mothers that lost loved ones during that time. And they had to get up the next day and go to work for the perpetrators or the perpetrator's family. So she not only gave the power for civil rights for Rosa, for Martin, and for everyone else, she gave some justice to other mothers that lost individuals. So the Emmett Till Commission struggled with having an apology written. Okay, so it took us a long time to, I don't know where I'm sitting on or something, but it took us a long time to get those words out and to have them to have the meaning that we didn't do it, but somebody needs to say that we're sorry that we didn't do what should have been done. But if you consider the times, it could not have been done. So we came into our time, the organization was formed, they worked hard to have the courthouse restored. And so in some people's eyes, that was the prize, to have the courthouse restored back. But because of people like myself and because of Jerome and the other members of the commission, we didn't leave it there. We did not leave it there. We have what we have today. We're a national monument in 2 states that don't even touch. We have panels like we have today. I had the honor and privilege in this past August to ride on that train with the last living witness to recognize 70 years of silence. 70 years of silence. So it has put us in so many places that, and so many other communities now recognize the significance of what happened in their communities, and they're standing strong. We stand shoulder to shoulder with Mount Bayou, telling these stories about T.M. Howard. They're gonna know one day. It's gonna be just as common as Emmett Till's story. And that's the work, and that's how we do it. We gather, we stand shoulder to shoulder, and we tell the truth. And we tell our children, and we try to leave a legacy and inspire. How can we do this work? We do it together. And that was what the commission did. They fought against so many different people saying, why are y'all bringing this up?
Very good. Thank you so much, Ms. Diming, for those words. So Ms. Halbert, right before I ask the question, I want to share that, like Congressman Lewis, countless young people, in his words, were at the edge of manhood, because young people did, not his word, felt a connection to him, right? Emmett's murder activated them to become involved in the civil rights movement, and their is a message the youths of the time can share with youths of the day. So respectfully fast forwarding, Ms. Halbert, as a child or as a younger person, you were around the work of the Emmett Till Memorial Commission by way of your aunt, who is now your colleague or our colleague, and you saw some of the work up close and personal. And you were a part of the earliest youth engagement work. If you don't mind, will you please speak to youth engagement work led by our colleague, Mr. Jay Rushing, and how ETIC has engaged young people around the Till narrative, which includes but isn't limited to the curriculum, film academy, the youth advisory council. And you've also had an opportunity to organize activities for young people and others in our local community within your station as community engagement coordinator. Like, what have some of those initiatives been? And I'll tell you what, Ms. Albert, I can share a little bit about Mr. Rush's work, because I know that can be a lot. And then and then by all means, feel free to elaborate and share on that, as well as your direct work with the center. And so Mr. Rushing, as stated, serves as our youth coordinator. And so let's get down to the meat and bones of it. There are a number of different things that he's heading up, but one of probably the most, for lack of a better way of putting it, important points of work that are by way of programming has been the creation of an Emmett Till curriculum, more specifically lesson units that fit within an Emmett Till curriculum. So for a long time, there really wasn't an established curriculum or lesson units that hone in on the life of Emmett Till. When you look at the Mississippi State history books, and I can attest it, Mississippi State history books, it only mentioned about a paragraph about Emmett Till, about the whole thing, not just his visit or his murder, but when we talk about the entirety of the narrative, at best you got about a paragraph. And that continued to be the case even up to today. And so our organization, in collaboration with some other stakeholders and other folks, believed it was important to try to change that, right? But how do you do that? Because there's no way we could get anybody to come to the Interpretive Center and hear me or others talk. We wanted to do the best we can to have this narrative shared, but have it shared in a way that encourages critical thinking and encourages inquiry, right? But also helps young folks see themselves in this story in a real way. And so the thought around it was, well, maybe we can present it in schools by way of lesson units that actual educators can use, right? It's a tool and an asset that folks that deal with children on a day-to-day can actually use to help them learn more about it. And so Mr. Rushing had he was given the task of basically finding and recruiting young folks who would participate in almost a year-long program and process where they not only learned about Emmett Till and Emmett Till Mobley, Fannie Lou Hamer, and others, they actually shared very matter-of-factly with Facing History and Ourselves, which was the name of the organization that we worked with to create the curriculum. They shared and gave not just feedback, but they told them very matter-of-factly that we need to go as deep as possible with this. Like, we know what we can handle. We know what really speaks to us as a generation, but also as scholars and learners. It's extremely important because prior to that, I'm not aware of a lesson unit piece that actually had young people at the forefront. Right? It's one thing to kind of create an idea or a project and then throw ain't the right word, and basically get feedback. But it's a whole other ballgame when you have the folks that are going to be directly impacted by it to be at the table creating it. So Mr. Rushing had the passion and the foresight and all the other stuff that I definitely don't have to help them, be armed with some information prior to, but then also be able to give information to those that were creating this lesson unit that is active, that is live and free for the public. It is available on our website, which is emmett-till.org, and there's a link that sends you to Facing History and Ourselves. So that is one of several pieces of work. One of the things I'm going to uplift, and then the floor is going to be Mrs. Howard. I mean, not Ms. Howard, but Ms. Howard. Is prior to, there's also we've been for the past few years, with the exception of we would host a documentary filmmakers workshop. Even prior to Mr. Rushing's coming on board, we used to host a summer-long fellowship program, 6 to 8 weeks, where we bring in youth. They learn about the story, we also learn about contemporary narratives and how they see themselves in it. And then there would be what used to be a photo documentary workshop housed in that larger fellowship program. And Ms. Halbert works directly with young people and community at large, and she's going to share some of the good work she's been doing as well. Ms. Halbert?
Back here, y'all. So Ben asked me a lot of questions. So I want to start with first being a young person in this narrative and when the work first began. And what I will tell y'all is over the past 20 years, I've seen with my own two eyes grow. Because when we first started visiting these spaces, visiting these locations, when I tell y'all it wasn't nothing. And I'm standing around going, now why they got us here? It looked like we somewhere where we don't need to be at, and we need to get from back here before we get in trouble again. So to see now that we have full structures, we have exhibits that explain the narrative in a layman's term way, not where I'm standing there reading a million paragraphs, but in a way that I can comprehend it. And my 5-year-old can comprehend it. Also being a national monument. That's full 360 from what I saw, where I saw the work beginning. And to say the youth that is engaged, I'm still shocked that I'm here. I want to reiterate that. Because when my auntie was telling me to be somewhere, in the back of my mind, I was going, I can't wait till I graduate from college because I'm leaving Mississippi because these folks ain't got nothing for me down here. But to know that I'm now a part of some work that is changing the narrative completely and setting milestones, like I said in the beginning, that my children will benefit from, that their story will be different from what mine was. History won't be something that you have to dig for. No, it's right here in your back pocket. It's right here provided to you. Matter of fact, your mama helped build this. So just to know that I'm seeing this happen daily, seeing it transform, it's just been mind-blowing. A part of the wildest dreams. The work that I do today, it stems from the things that I went through when I was younger. When I was growing up in South County, we had nothing but the football games to go to or basketball games. Now I'm thinking about the things that we were deprived of. We didn't have a public library where we can go to on a daily basis or somewhere where we can go back and have these conversations and talk about, I read a book and they talked about history that's still affecting me today. We didn't have those safe spaces to do that. Now, every year in October for the last 4 years, I hosted a fall book walk where we give the youth books, we engage with them with a story, we introduce them to the Emmett Till narrative. We also introduce them to the local businesses that are around the square. Little do you know, these businesses are a part of your community. These are things that you benefit from, and if they leave, you lose because they're gone. So to let them know, at this little bitty age, by the time you get to this knee-high age, you can begin to bring businesses to this space. You can begin to advocate for your community. You can begin to share your voice. We're working to create those spaces for them. When I first started working at the Emmett Till Interpretive Center, it was a bad narrative that it was not for the Black community. Well, as the sole person that goes out in the community and tell people, y'all come in here and learn this history, this is for us. We went out and we worked hard and we brought people here to learn our narrative so that we can learn how to tell it to you guys. Please come in here and learn this narrative. And just past this July, I had an event for Emmett's birthday. And we had more than 10 youth. When I say 10 youth, I mean about 10, 15, 16-year-olds in the building, just engaging with us. And that's a complete change from saying, that ain't for us. So just knowing that we're creating spaces for our youth to know that they can come to, and it's not just street corners or something like that, I feel we're changing the narrative. We're doing good work.
Thank you so much, Ms. Halbert. And so Ms. Halbert being modest, I'm gonna share real quick that she, in her role, well, whether it's her role or not, she's been able to really serve as a direct line to our community at large. She has been instrumental in helping with sickle cell walks and book walks and other endeavors with the school. And that's been something that she's just kind of done in a lot of ways just because she has a passion and a heart for people as well as her community. So we definitely we are beneficiaries of her passion and kindness. I just wanted to share that with y'all and whoever else may be you. Y'all, we're almost at that time. Okay, we're almost at that time. But as a man that tries to be, I try to be true to my word. Mr. Johnson, we circling back to you. You pretty much gonna kind of have the last word. We might be able to, I mean, but we'll still do the Q&A though. But I wanted to make sure we circle back, Mr. Johnson. As you continue to inspire future generations through the Mound Bayou movement, which is a revitalization effort you and your son Hermon Jr. and Daryl have founded. This work focuses on community restoration, economic development, and cultural preservation in Mississippi Delta with Mound Bayou at its heart. What inspiration can we take away from the Till story and other known and unknown moments that have defined the Black experience in America?
Let me say this, you know, so a lot of people may not have, any of y'all seen these two movies about Emmett Till, the one called the Till movement, and the one was done by the women of the movement. A lot of people may not know, and I'm sharing this with Emmett Till, that the fact that the people who, well, let me say, in the movie, there was a question about whether it rain, are you sure that's the right boy? In the movie, they asked the question, are you sure that's the right boy in the area? Now, the reason they asked that question, that the white people know, but the Black people didn't know. The reason they asked that question was because the guy who threw Emmett Till in the river, he had thrown another family off of his place in the river. You might not already know. But he had thrown some more folk in there. And that's why they asked the question, are you sure that's the right boy? And the only thing was the rain. Let me share one other thing with you that was the reason that everybody knows about Emmett Till. It's because when somebody gave their opportunity for it to be printed and put in a jet and up in the magazine with his face like it was, that's when everybody saw it. Otherwise, it would have been just another black boy thrown in the river. But that is why. Now, those are the things that all of you should always remember. The fact that Emmett Till in the Jet magazine and the Ebony magazine where the lady showed his face. Now, there's a question about who had the authority to do Emmett Till's picture. Because in the movie, you probably heard that the sheriff in the county had told the undertaker to bury that boy. You remember that? Bury that boy. But somebody stopped it. Now that's what somebody said. And there's so much we learn by being with the museum here in Mount Bayou. You don't know how much. Let me just something. And I know I might be talking a little bit long, but I'm saying this because a lot of people don't know. The history books of the state of Mississippi didn't have anything about Mount Bayou. You get to go to the index to find out that Mount Bayou, the city in the area of Mount Bayou, had the best grade of cotton in the world. I ain't talking about in the United States. I'm talking about in the world. You might not have known that. In the world. And the same people who ran the plantation had slave owners in Vicksburg had the best grade of cotton in the world. And they came to Mount Bayou and did the same thing. We only had, was big enough population-wise for one cotton field. You know how many houses we had? 6 cotton fields in Mount Bayou because people were bringing that cotton here to get it. I'm sharing that information with you. We talking about the history of Black people and how Emmett Till and all of those was in there and sharing that information with you because it's things that you don't know. And I don't want to talk too much about it.
But that's right there. That's a great segue right there. Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. And thank you all. We're going to open the floor for Q&A before we have closing. Are there any questions from the audience? I ain't gonna look directly at nobody. I ain't gonna put nobody on the spot. But are there any questions from the audience?
I just have one question that I'd like to just maybe someone address. Why, when it was so many children that was killed in Mississippi, so much murder, so many people hung, why Emmett Till? And that story is so much alive today that it has a national monument. Why?
Oh, you want to?
Just a little tidbit.
I'm not asking for an answer. I'm just putting it out there because I know that there is a spiritual side to this as well. But I think that question needs to be answered. I mean, dealt with, not actually answered, more so thought about it.
The reason I open my mouth first is it, because a lot of times that question is asked when we have larger groups. And in my mind, as a mother, and I keep bringing it up because Mamie never conceived again. Mamie never had any other children again. Emmett was her only child, and she fought till her death for his life. And I couldn't fathom having the energy, the poise, the knowledge that she had, and the way that she moved after Emmett passed away. Doing the tours of the South that Rosa Parks heard her story. Continuously working and bringing advocacy for Emmett and other Black children that were killed. I don't know many other stories that had an advocate like her. We cannot leave her name out in any aspect. Mamie played a major role in it. She opened that casket. She advised the photographer to take that picture. She came here to go to trial. She sat in the courtroom with her murderers of her son right across from her, where their kids were shooting guns at her. She did that so eloquently. We cannot leave her out. I give a lot of it to her.
So I want to affirm what Mrs. Halbert is saying. I want to share just a little bit, because I know again, that was a question you were raising as a point of thought. And it's important to continue having it and holding it as a point of thought. So I think now when it comes to what I'm going to share is a response, not the answer, right? So I think there are a number of reasons. I think this particular story is one that gained the prominence it did and still holds so much present day weight to us, to society at large. And so one of which is the fact that when we think about Summer 55, there was already a lot going on in America. The Summer 55, Thurgood Marshall renders his statement regarding Brown versus Board decision in 54, where civil equal becomes unconstitutional. Well, a year later, Thurgood Marshall, gives his now, famous quote around all deliberate speed, which speaks to the importance of not just saying it's unconstitutional, but hey, we have to become intentional and make this a point of urgent matter where several but equal is no longer a practice. Keep in mind, we're talking about America and more specifically the South. We're talking about Black and white children almost having by way of legal matter to learn together. So desegregation in a lot of ways, in a very real, measurable way, is not just illegal, but it will no longer continue to be the norm. And in Mississippi, you had elected officials saying, very matter of fact, and I'm paraphrasing, but they said, very matter of fact, that bloodshed will take place because of this, right? So you have a society that was, I'm going to use this phrase, that was hell bent on continuing to uphold principles of white supremacy and white, and ideologies that dehumanize Black folk. Well, when it comes to a decision by way of the Supreme Court, that is the final say-so. And so Emmett Till, being a 14-year-old child, is now coming into a Mississippi that is already at a boiling point. It's already a powder keg, because we also have two other murders in Mississippi in particular that take place. One of which happens, as a matter of fact, like about 10 days before Wheeler Parker and Emmett make their arrival in Mississippi. And so the two murders that happened, one of which being that of Reverend George Lee Washington, I think of Belzoni, Humphreys County, Mississippi, and another being a gentleman by the name of Lamar Smith. One of those murders, the widow to, I want to say the widow to Lamar, but I may be incorrect. she makes a decision to have an overcast funeral. And so I wanted to share that in part because when we think about the decision Mrs. Venita Till made, when we look at the overcast funeral decision, that already happened in Mississippi. But in addition to what Mrs. Tower said, and I'm gonna be quiet. I don't know if there is a single answer, right? But I do know that there was an environment that was so contentious. And this is also at a point where technology is starting to change as well, right? Like you have the advent of television in addition to radio, although television already kind of existed, but it's starting to become a little bit more mainstream, more folks, regardless of their economic status, are having television. So they're being bombarded with updates, right? So this is like, when you think of like the O.J. Simpson trial of the 90s, how controversial that was, this is like, with respect to all parties involved in it, this is like the O.J. trial before the O.J. trial. And so this speaks to a turning point in society, because the civil rights movement, the modern civil rights movement, in a lot of ways, was already kind of happening, but this was like the preamble to the official modern civil rights movement of the mid-50s through the late 60s. So that's just my opinion. And y'all, I've been talking a whole week. Ms. Jessie, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah.
Okay.
To piggyback off of both of my admired team members and what they bring to the table, my answer is why not Emmett Till? Because as Benjamin so eloquently put it, with all the historical things that were going on, and then from that mother, and like I say, she gave voice and attention to this mindset of people in these Southern communities. She gave those mothers a stand. So why not Emmett Till? Because Emmett Till was the one that everybody galvanized behind and were inspired to make a difference, to stop what was going on, the murdering of young Black people, to stop the Ku Klux Klan, to stop this narrative that Black people are still slaves. They're just out of slavery, but they're still our slaves because they work on our plantation, but we take care of them. We allow them to go home and to go to work. We allow them to be existing in our land. So why not Emmett Till? And that mother, and that pride to say, no more. I want the world to see what y'all did to my baby.
One of the things I'd like to share with you before we go to Reverend Johnson, let me just share with you the reason Emmett Till, and I'm saying this because people could not talk anywhere in the state of Mississippi unless they came to Mound Bayou to go to the FBI Washington. You could not talk anywhere. You had to come to Mound Bayou to get on the telephone to talk to the FBI in a minute. I just want y'all to know that. Many of you didn't know it. Thank you.
We do have a question from the audience.
Okay, so it's a pretty lengthy question, but bear with me. So I'm a teacher, and I feel like it's, and sometimes conversations come up, maybe more segregation and kids, and they don't really know too much, and so they open the floor for discussion. And like Mr. Johnson was saying, history books barely tell the whole full story. So if they're giving a brief excerpt about Emmett Till, they're rarely going to talk about those people who, like the family that was thrown in the river with or before him. They're not going to tell their story. So I love your organization that you were talking about, and I was wondering, what would it take to get that spread across Mississippi? Get more organizations like that, because probably every town in Mississippi has a story like Emmett Till, but it's not being told. And like his question, I'm gonna piggyback off his question, why Emmett Till? And you were saying because of his mother, those children or those people who were lost and, you know, didn't have their story told with that organization, be able to tell their story for them and get them as known as Emmett Till.
So, and y'all are working shit, you know, responding to two very important questions. And I'm having a moment, so you might re-ask the question.
Okay.
So one of them, I want to say I remember being around, I think we're going to put it, getting those resources out so that it becomes basically a part of what's taught in the state. Yeah, like a norm. My opinion is this. Okay, so anyone sue me for no opinion? Well, I hope nobody tries to sue me for no opinion. There are I think there are a number of different approaches. As of now, there have been challenges, or at least there seems to have been challenges from certain folks when it comes to sharing history objectively. And so, in some ways, it kind of becomes, as unfair as this may be, it kind of becomes a burden on the individual educator to look for and or use resources that are available. Because, and I say this being ever so many years removed from the classroom myself, I know that depending on your subject area, you know, especially if it's a tested subject area, the district is basically telling you, hey, the numbers got to look away. Like, it has to look away, which doesn't give way to a lot of creative liberty as an educator, right? So having said that, I'm of the belief that there are a few things that our organization has to do, but then there also are some things that we hope we can encourage community at large as well as folks that are in education to do. So one of which is continued sharing in spaces like this, right, where we let folks know that, hey, there are resources for educators and others to introduce this story in a way that can be relatively easily implemented or applied in, within the education setting. But I think the other thing too is our organization and others have to become very creative in how we collaborate with other community members. And now I will say this as well, then I'm going to be quiet because I know other folks will talk. It seems as if there is momentum from other facets of community within the state that are showing an interest in this lesson unit that we've been able to help develop. But like most things, we're kind of at the mercy of time. Like change is something that rarely happens at the rate we desire. And in order to make change a part of like the permanent fixture, it takes that much more time and energy. But I do think, that's something that our organization cares about, is finding ways, even, if nothing more to just let folks know that there are some resources. I mean, it's not to say all the end all, but it is definitely one process that has rendered fruit that we really want educators to be aware of and to use however they see fit. We just have to find ways to really get that out there so that folks know that this is free, by the way. It is of no, financial obligation or anything to folks. And the folks that help create this, Face History ourselves, they want educators and others. But last, and I'm finished, is I think we got to find, you asked, your second question was, what was your second question?
Would having more of these organizations bring awareness to the
other stories? So the simple, not easy, but the simple answer is yes. The real question, not real question. I think the underlying question becomes, how much time and energy can people give to make it a reality? Because when it comes to even our organization, those were years of labor, and let me just say free labor. And some folks, not that stuff is about $1 a payment, but everybody ain't in a position to give that kind of time, that kind of research, and that kind of effort. And not to say it shouldn't be taken, and not to say that there isn't a way to make it a reality. But sometimes the just the breaking of silence is a labor. And so finding ways to get more communities or get other folks in different places to look at their local stories and their local histories and find ways to ensure that they're shared in a way that is accurate and objective and whatnot. Those are also things that we're figuring out Even though we've been doing this work now for almost 20 years officially, it's not impossible, but it definitely takes time. And I think it honestly just starts with finding a few folks that have a similar interest and desire to do it, and then just building that process. Because Mr. Sure is, we've been able to have some success in it. Success may look differently per group or per community or per organization that does.
From the old lady from 20 years. It takes time, and if you're out there and it takes grassroots organization, I did this work for $5 worth of gas and $5 for lunch, and I had to beg for that. I got that maybe once a month, but I did a lot of work. But it has broadened my my journey. I've been to Swanee, Tennessee. I've been to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've been to Washington, D.C. through this work. And when we started this work, there was a lot of kickback on both sides of it. You're going to run into that. But staying the course and being passionate about it, and what I've learned, not only about the Emmett Till story, but about what I learned this evening has added to that definition of what happened to Emmett, that there was this same person that dumped Emmett's body, had dumped a whole family. I know of a story about they found a Black woman in a fireplace that was pregnant, okay, on 49 between Glendora and Menor City, okay? And then we were invited to Tulsa, Oklahoma because of our journey and how we got to be a national monument and how they're working to recognize the significance of Greenwood, okay, and the injustice there. So it is a journey. For me, it's been a 20-year journey, and it's going to be much more than that. But you sitting there and you asking those questions is how it gets done and to be galvanized.
I got answers
Mm.
too. My motto, I try not to think so big because I get overwhelmed. And right now, as an organization, we're taking small bites off of the elephant. When it comes to getting this information out, Being does awesome tours on a daily basis. At the Interpretive Center, we are open from 12 to 5, Tuesday through Saturday. Walk-ins are welcome. And we do take visitation bookings on our site. So if it's ever a free time where your students have the space where they can come and visit us, we encourage that. Oh, yeah. We encourage. Yes, and that's taking small bites because when they come into those spaces, they learn. And what I will tell you is, I have the most fun telling this narrative with young people because they have the best questions. You think they're not intrigued? You think they're not listening? Just give them the floor and allow them to speak with you freely. They'll have you on your toes going, never think about that. I gotta go talk to Ben and I'm gonna get that answer for you. So our organization does offer help like that. Also, when it comes to other communities telling those stories, that's the heart of the film workshop program. Jay is giving our young people the tools to know how to tell their own story. All of the students that are a part of the film workshop are not just from Tallahatchie County. They're from other counties around the Delta. And we do encourage other students to come in. And we've been having conversations with other school districts that are looking to do work like this. So we taking little bites off that L until we go.
Were there any other questions from the floor?
Yes.
My question was similar to hers. First, I'd like to applaud y'all for the work that y'all do and that y'all are doing, and encourage y'all to keep it up. I especially like Mr. Johnson. I always love listening to history that I didn't know, because they have it all. They have the information that we don't know, and if we don't talk to them, we lose. But the thing I wanted to ask was this, that, we're from, Greenville. And so I understand the building is that way. Let me tell you, when I first came here and I saw those cars, I was so happy. Because I thought they were here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they should be here. You know, I don't know what they're having over there, but I was so happy that, hey, that we got a crowd. We might have a seat. So those are the crowds that we need to be getting, you know. But what I want to say is that any way that y'all have something set up where y'all can come from the building and maybe introduce this information to some of the younger children, because if you just win one, it's not about winning a group. If you can just get one person that's passionate about the history, our history, you know, that one person can go on and change things. So I was just wondering, is there anything that y'all have planned to maybe get out and come to different schools or different churches or maybe summer programs and things of that nature?
Very good question, sir. Thank you. So I'm trying to be long-winded myself because it's got it. But but not that I'm downplaying the importance of the question. So the short answer is yes. Hey, now I'm not saying. Now I want to be clear when I say yes. It's yes with an asterisk. So like there is the will and the desire to go any and everywhere anytime someone requests. Whether or not it becomes a reality, it just depends. So when it comes like this, let's talk about this particular program. It takes a little bit of planning and other things from an organizational standpoint. But this is what I can tell you. I can tell you very matter of factly, even outside of this program, we can offer virtual, for lack of a better word, tours or conversation. So let's say there was a church group that was interested in visiting, but they couldn't. Well, if that church group has, if they got Zoom or something, they can do like the digital conference stuff. We happily get on the phone or get on whatever and have that conversation whatever that platform allows. So it doesn't have. It's not exclusive to person. We can do Zooms or whatever these other ones are. I'm gonna say this one, but if y'all can avoid it, please don't use Microsoft Teams. Not that Microsoft Teams is bad, but my personal preference, not that of the organization, my personal preference is Zoom. But like stuff like software like that, we happily engage digitally or other virtual platforms. Now, if and when would be in this program or something similar, we do look to target other areas. I might be wrong, but I want to say in our early planning and conversations about a potential continuation of this or a program similar to this, the Greenville area or Washington County area was one of the places we look to go. We want to go to. And so when we know that is the case, we'll definitely place it like on our website as well as social media via Facebook and Instagram and some of those other sites that we have. But I know I kind of went all around the world, but the short answer is yes. We're having to do stuff digitally with churches and or schools or whomever. But if there's a way to get there personally, I and some of my other colleagues have gone on site and engaged with persons, be they organizations, schools, churches, etc. So it's just a matter of getting in touch with us, and then we do our best to try to get out there. And so we'll share all that info in the closing.
No, I don't need that. I just want to say one thing. My son back there who runs the museum is connected with the largest children's museum in the country. Oh, wow. And we are working with them, and they're talking about helping to do a national museum for young people all over the country. So we'll have an opportunity to share the information with your churches. But let me say this. Many churches and many organizations in churches around Greenville and all around been coming to in busloads to Museumville.
And we came here one time, and we were so impressed that we've been back.
All right.
In our church, here, They was impressed. We made the tour.
Yeah.
Through Sunday. We went all around, because we didn't know. I didn't know all of this. I've heard of my Bayou. Never knew the history of, and knew how great they really were. In the town of my Bayou. I just heard my Bayou, they got up kidding me. But I didn't know the history. But now that I've come here and I've listened to the different people explain what's going on, and I understand how important it was for my Bayou, the importance of my Bayou played in the whole scheme of things. Yeah.
How Venita got involved, we put together what we call a student exchange tour. And that tour in its last year included West Valley, East Valley, LeFlore County, the Choctaw Nation School in Philadelphia, the county school and the city school. That is something that I think is a model that should be brought back where students go. I think that the schools should understand that we are there and available to them for Black History Month or for at any time that they can tap into our organization. And like I said, we do travel, and I'm gonna go right back to, it's the people, it's the grassroots people. It's what you want to see for your community. It can be worked out. Student exchange is a good one. Us putting ourselves out there and letting schools know how we can either Zoom or how we can go these panels, but it takes a village. And if you have the desire, we will come. Okay, and it's just a matter, and in this day and age, it's a little bit easier to connect up and to do these things. I think that it should be offered in that manner as far as schools and churches and any organization. And we do get a lot of them, especially college.
So ladies and gentlemen, with respect to time and everything else, we really do thank y'all for coming out in this space. We definitely want to thank none other than Mr. Hermon, Senior, for coming out and singing all this with some knowledge with us. And so I'm going to read us out on our closeout, y'all. Again, we want to thank the Mound Valley Museum for graciously hosting us and welcoming the community here this evening as we remember and reflect on the importance on this important moment of history. Our organization has been grateful for the many community partners we've had this year being the 70th anniversary, and especially those who supported the Remembering Emmett series. This museum has been an amazing partner in this work. And we truly appreciate you all tremendously. I mean, I read it, but I mean, like, we really do thank the Mount Bayou Museum and the good folks in Mount Bayou. And even times past, like, we truly are grateful for this partnership.
And future work.
And future work. That's right. Amen. And so the Emmett Till Interpretive Center would also like to thank the Mississippi Humanities Council for funding this series, and to the veterans of the Mississippi Civil Rights Movement for supporting our work over the course of this 70th anniversary commemoration year. Y'all, there is an evaluation QR code inside your programs. It's in your programs rather, and there's also a print copy available. We really, for those that were able to, please fill it out. So whether if you got a pen, just fill out that information real quick, pen or pencil. I don't want to limit you. But otherwise, if you got one of them fancy phones that let you get on the QR code, just fill it out from there. And then from there, we're going to turn it over to Reverend Jones for closing remarks on behalf of the organization.
Okay.
We really do thank y'all for your time. Reverend Johnson?
Let me say, social media, your code, that QR code for social media is right at the left-hand corner or the top corner of you. You see a QR code. If y'all watching us, just look on the edge, top up there, and it's the same QR code that we have here. We want everybody to fill out one of those evaluations that's going to help us with our numbers. We have a lot of people that are we're listening and we're involved with this. I just want to share with you one of them, person that saw just one. It's a lot of comments, but one of them said, "Mr. Herman Johnson, it's time for you to write your book." That That came from Keith Beauchamp. And he said he was giving all the kudos to Mr. Johnson. So Keith, I'm letting them know right in this program that you were listening, you were watching, you were there. And all of you all that joined us, we're excited to have you all. We have several YouTube channels that we're on right now. Also, there are some Facebook pages that we're on as well. So we have several platforms that we're on today. So don't think people didn't hear you and they didn't see it. I want to say this as I close. For every child, for every situation that racism, the spirit of racism, affected even the lives of them, of your family, your friends, or because you were just black, or because you were just another color. Racism, that spirit, that is what I believe Emmett Till stands for. That's what Emmett Till was crying about and wanted the world to know. Because if the world knows anything, if you can get rid of that cancer, you can come together and be somebody. And I believe that's one of the things that we need to be looking at as well. And I pledge to utilize this museum here in Mound, Bayou, Mississippi, to attack that spirit, to approach the next level that we as a country can grow to, so that we can truly say that we are one nation under God, and that we actually are indivisible with freedom, which is liberty, and real justice for all. Thank you all. Thank you for bringing all of our panelists here, all of y'all coming to Mound Bayou. Thank everybody here. We're going to close out today. So as we close, may I pray. Dear Father, we thank you for all of the participants and everybody who's come far and near, everybody who has been a part of this and will be a part of this by social media. We thank you that our eyes are open and that we can see even past all of this, the great things that God is doing. So we give you all the praises and glory for what you're going to do based on what was discussed here. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. And thank y'all so much. Amen and amen. All right, y'all.
Let me just say, some of you don't keep those down. Is the person who wrote the Till movie. Yeah. And he
Producer.
Executive producer
Yeah.
or director. He also did the documentary about 20 years ago called The Untold Story.
That's it?